Hi everyone! So in today's class, we have been learning a lot about the author and illustrator Eric Carle. We have learned that he is a unique author and illustrator because he is both. Many other stories and books have separate authors and separate illustrators, which means one person draws the picture and one person writes the story and they put it together to create one book. But Eric Carle does both. And we have learned that his style of illustrations is quite unique because he takes paper and he paints it, and he takes different tools to make designs on his paper. And once it's dry, he cuts them out to form different shapes, and he lays them out to create a collage and form different images, such as the very hungry caterpillar and the different fruits in the book and vegetables, or all his books have different things like that. So today, we are going to create images in the style of Eric Carle. So in my example, I have created a butterfly. And you can see the different designs throughout my butterfly. In the body of the butterfly, there are lines straight up and down. In the eyes of the butterfly, you can see little dots. And in the wings of the butterfly, you can see little streaks, just different directions. And over here, you can see like a swirl design. And down here in the yellow, it's harder to see, but you can see it's a crisscross pattern. So today I'm going to be teaching you how we make the paper in the same way that Eric Carle does so that we can cut it out and create an image. But before we get to that, I just want to show you a few more examples. So here's another example of the crisscross pattern. And notice in my examples, I went nice and close to the edge like you will be doing when you're painting. This one is a swirl design created with a fork. This one is another different crisscross design created with a fork. And this one is a dot design, which was created with a Q-tip. So I'm going to show you how to make those. So each table is going to have their own palette of paint. And in my palette right here, I have 5 colors. So I also have 5 brushes, one for each color. We're not going to mix our brushes. So if I paint pink with this brush, I'm not going to wipe it off and then go to purple. We're going to use one brush per each color. So if you start with pink and then you wanted to do purple next, but your friend is already doing purple, you'll have to wait until they have finished. But we're each going to be creating 4 different papers, so you can work on a different one while someone else is using the color you're waiting for. So in order to get started, we have a fork, plastic forks, and Q-tips will be at each table. And your table will have a tablecloth, but I don't have one with me today, so I'm not having that. So let me give you an example if I start with the purple paint. Now I want to make sure I'm getting my paint nice and close to the edges, and I want to make sure I put a good amount of paint. If I put too little paint, it's not going to show my design, but I don't want to put too much so that it makes the paper heavy and doesn't turn out. So if I paint my paper half in this color, and then I take my fork, I can drag it across the paint to make lines. Now it might be a little bit hard to see because it's still drying, or I could also add lines up and down to make a crisscross pattern. Or I could have created squiggle lines back and forth. But when you do this, I want you to make it your full size of paper. Go all the way down and cover both parts. So again, we need to make sure we put enough paint, but not too much. So do you see how my paint is like thick? It's not, you can't see the white through it. That means it's a good amount of paint. So next we're going to take a Q-tip, and you can do whatever you want. Maybe you want to make little circles in your paper. Or maybe you want to make lines like I had in my butterfly wings. You can try different things. Very quickly, I want to show you what happens if you don't use enough paint. So if I have paint and I paint it like this, You can see it's very thin. It's not thick like the way I showed you the paint was for the pink one, is it? You can see the white. It's not very thick. So if I take my fork for this example and I tried to make lines, they don't really show up because there's not enough paint. If I were to use the proper amount of paint, it would work much better. So that's a little bit thicker there in the middle. You can see my lines showed up. So you'll just need to repaint over top again if it doesn't work the first time. So once you've finished, we're going to leave them at our table to dry, and you can ask the teacher to go wash your hands and then go to the classroom library to wait for our paper to dry before we move on to creating our image. In the classroom library, I have put many Eric Carle books that you might want to check out, so have fun and be creative.